you all today?
Good. Look at you with your virtual background.
Yeah. Well, I'm in my bedroom, so it really only works this way.
I hear you.
I watched the first few episodes, and by the second episode, I was like addicted. Like I was in this world, and that's saying something because I don't always see that in shows. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 episodes to get into a show like that. So for both of you, well, no, I mean, Michelle, starting with you, how did you build this? Because I can only imagine taking a book like this must be difficult to translate for TV.
I mean, sure, it's definitely challenging. Eden's worlds are sprawling and non-linear, and it's just really, you can go wherever your imagination takes you. But that being said, when I read a good book, and I know it's a good book when I see it, I see everything. Like I see the scenes, I see the characters, I see the world they're in, and that's what happened when I read her. So in some ways it was really easy because she just built this incredible journey that I went on, and then I just had to basically express it outwards, into cinema. So in some ways it was really easy. The challenge was fitting all of that into 6 episodes. So invariably you have to take some artistic license. Some things are left behind and some things are moved forward and some things are made up. But, we're going into a second season, and the nice thing is there's no shortage of amazing creative material to draw from. So.
Well, and it speaks so much to the characters that so many shows have a lot of characters, but they don't always have a lot of story for all those characters, whereas this really balances the characters out quite well. And obviously, I mean, Jared being the center of the characters, but there's so much in every one of them. Did you have a challenge of giving them each that amount of time?
Well, it's always a bit of a balancing act, but it is Jared's story, and we are going through the world through Jared's eyes and experience. So that is very anchoring. I think for us, there's so many characters in Eden's books that we couldn't possibly put everyone in for a season. So for me, I was mourning the loss of certain characters that I couldn't bring in that I wanted to. And then other times we put 2 characters and made them into one, 2 characters from the book and made them into one for television. So that's always a bit challenging. So in some ways I would say it's less of an adaptation and more of an inspired by, we take some creative license.
Well, Joel, for you, this character is there's so much meat, I would say, to the character. What was it like stepping into his shoes?
It was really good because I could relate to him a lot. I was a 17-year-old kid. He's a 17-year-old kid. High school, all of that stuff. I could really relate to a lot of it, and I was really, really happy that I got to be in a story like that where I could express him in the ways that he should be expressed.
And it seems like, I mean, you seem to have fun with it because, sometimes these kind of stories don't get told the right way. There's so much humor in him and in this whole thing. I love his ride that he gets later on in the show as well. Did you find that it's easy to play that kind of double-edged of serious but funny at the same time?
Yeah, it was easy to get into the more fun scenes and stuff like that, but the sadder scenes, it was definitely a struggle a little bit, but I definitely use music was my number one tool to do that. And
yeah. What were you listening to?
You want me to name the song?
Well, even just the artist. So who were you listening to kind of get into this?
Well, it's called Brighton. I'm not sure who the artist is, but Brighton. I want to remember them so bad right now.
That's okay. I'm putting you on the spot. I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, overall, working on this show together, was it mostly just did it just flow the way you expected, Michelle, or did you end up changing anything while you were filming? How did that process go?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a background in documentary, and the beauty of documentary is that you never know really what you're filming because you're in real life. So the fluidity of that is a good sort of talent to have when crossing over into fiction, because nothing ever goes how you planned. It's like, didn't John Lennon say life is what happens while you're busy making plans? And so the set is like life. It's just happening, and you're like reacting, adapting, changing. And that's the beauty of art, right? Of creating things with collaborating with other people. But I would say, you know, I'm very happy. Like, I feel like the vision that I wanted to express for the world of Maggie and Jared, we were able to do that, and we were true to the story and true to those characters. I could never have foreseen something like 38 days of rain. It rained almost every day we filmed, and so at one point I was just looking like, please rain gods, please stop. But we kept joking that it was the Trickster who was populating our set and making fun of us as we tried to make this story.
Well, Joel, for you, were there any particular scenes that you enjoyed the most, either early on or somewhere in the series?
I like some of the fight scenes. You know, like the fight scenes were really fun to do, with just like having like a own like stunt choreographer and stuff like that, and just getting like hands on, you know, wrestling and stuff like that. It was really fun. I probably enjoyed those most.
You have a lot to work with, and your cast is fascinating. So I'm also curious, Joel, you know, who were some of your favorite like scene partners? Because I imagine they all bring something very different to the show.
Yeah, I would say Kalani and I definitely meshed really good. You know, I took so much inspiration by Kalani. I had so many long talks with him, you know, like in the hotel room, just about life and about acting and everything. And he was the perfect inspiration that I needed for this show, like as a cast member.
He was saying that he first met you on the van ride up to set, and that you guys talked the whole time. And that's fascinating, because people don't always mesh that well on a show, really.
Yeah, no, it was me, Crystal, and Kalani, and we all just talked the whole time. It was really good.
There's a character called Richie in the show, and it's the drug dealer that moves into the house with Maggie, and he taunts and aggravates Jared. And it's so funny because Joel Thomas Hines plays him, and he is so tough looking and everything. But between the scenes, they are constantly laughing. Like Joel Thomas Hines would have Joel Oulette in stitches, and I'd have to be like, okay, ground yourself. You can't laugh. And it was really funny to see their taunting relationship behind the camera.
Well, I love Richie's shower scene, because I think that it kind of pops out of you like, oh, okay, he's not what you quite expect.
Yeah.
Get this offside.
The show has so much room to move. There's so much going on at times, and there are so many great characters that come in. Michelle, for you, kind of pacing it, were the things that you were definitely like, all right, if I don't do this in episode 1, then, you know, this sets up the whole chain. Did you have certain things that had to shift? In the storytelling, I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I would say that there's some flashbacks in the series, and we played a lot in the edit suite with where those flashbacks and where that information would become sort of available to the audience. So we played with the placement of those flashbacks and how that backstory came through. But I would say one of the things tonally that was so important to me was I really wanted, even though there's sort of this irreverent humor and this sort of darkness and grittiness, I wanted there to be an homage to sort of horror and grindhouse. So a lot of long shots, a lot of sort of like kitschy fighting scenes and things like that, which I love both those genres. And so it was my personal homage to that kind of filmmaking.
Well, I love when Sarah shows up with the moose, I believe it was moose carcass in her arms. That whole moment was like indelible. It was fantastically played out.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up every fall. like the men in my community would basically turn a garage into a full-fledged butchery for moose. And, you know, and it's pretty grotesque, but the kids all run around and wait for pepperoni sticks, and the dads come out and they've got bloody aprons, and that's just moose hunting season, you know? And I think like those are the kind of little specifics that we could take to the show that make it kind of fun and gory, but also funny. Yeah.
What was it like doing Northern Ontario, standing in for West Coast?
That was really challenging, actually, because we were filming in Kitimat in the summer, and it's green and lush and mountainous. And then we were filming in North Bay, and it started to become fall, so you had the shift in colors. So we really had to plan we used plates where we would video effects the mountains in the background. So we had to plan for those shots in prep before we'd even started shooting. And we also color corrected down so that we tend to be in a more sort of desaturated brown and yellow palette, so that we weren't like, it wasn't so clear that we weren't in a green rainforest by the time we got to Northern Ontario. But in the end, I'm really happy. I think it actually matches pretty well, but it did require a lot of planning to do that.
I didn't know that you shot in Northern Ontario until I got in on this junket, and they said, someone said that. I was like, what? Are you serious? It totally, I didn't expect that at all.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment, because it was definitely one of the bigger challenges.
Joel, for you, did you read the book before you did the show?
I read it when I got casted, yeah.
And what did you think of it? Was it a bit daunting, you know, thinking of taking on this character, or how did you relate to him then?
It was a little daunting, but I mean, like, for the teenager aspect, I could really relate, you know, the parties and stuff like that, and just like the pressure of schoolwork and, you know, just all of that. And picturing yourself, you know, being in this book and like picturing yourself as the main guy, it's really weird and really surreal. But I mean, it's really fun picturing yourself like getting your toes getting bit off by otters and stuff like that, and then stuff talking to you. I don't know. It was fun though.
Was it difficult talking to an imaginary crow?
Yeah. It was like one of the first days in Kitimat, actually. So I mean, I didn't have a lot of practice talking to imaginary things, so I had to prep on that a little bit. But yeah, it worked out good.
And we did have a crow that came to set, like a trained crow. But, you know,
really?
It is a wild animal. So, I mean, how much, like, a crow's kind of, you know, it doesn't always do exactly what you think it's going to do. So that was interesting, too.
I guess that's the other question is, what was the most challenging thing to do for the show? Like, obviously, outside of putting it together from the start, what was challenging once you're on set?
I mean, it's a really ambitious show in terms of like the budget when you look at how much video effects and how much creature creation and the big cast. And so that was definitely a challenge, but I felt like we were up for that challenge. For me, the biggest challenge was really thinking about ideas around how to decolonize a film set. We're working in a very colonial hierarchical system of professional film and television. And how do we indigenize that? And so we had ways to do that. We had an opening ceremony. We had an elder who would come and do story time at lunch hours, and also do sweat lodges for the crew and the cast. But I always feel like there's more we can do, you know? And I think like as more Indigenous people move behind the camera, we're going to be able to create these structures that support our storytelling in different ways, more and more and more. And so this is just the beginning, and I hope that we can do more of that in second season.
Well, I'm curious too, is there a way that a lot of times when a film set or TV show comes together, it's always just a very in the moment kind of thing. Is there more that can be done from your perspective that can be carried forward, that can be done again and again for more shows and films?
Yeah, I think like we were very involved in structuring the production so that we had training opportunities. So it was sort of a two-tiered structure to bring Indigenous people into roles behind the camera. So we would have like a training mentorship level, and like we had an extensive director training program, and different departments would have training, but we also would have paid positions so that people who maybe had experience in the past could get more experience and have really that credit to put on their resume. So creating that capacity moving forward for Indigenous people, and that's kind of what my goal is with the show on all levels.
Amazing. Well, last question for both of you is, what do you hope the audience takes away? What do you hope is at least the one thing that you want them to be like, this is awesome? I know that's a hard question.
Probably just more respect for Indigenous people and Indigenous cultures. You know, I feel like people really need to respect that more. And I feel like it's such a cool, funny, magical show like this is gonna make people like think differently.
I couldn't agree more. Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
It's really hard to add to that. I totally second the statement of Joel. And yeah, I just think we're ready for that kind of change. And hopefully this is a step in that direction.
I have to say, as an audience member, I hope there's more people get into these shows, because this, to me, this is filling a need. There's so many cop shows out there, and there's so many, other procedurals that I'm so tired of, and this is a breath of fresh air, and there's a need for more of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think in this day and age, I don't really need to see more cops on TV right now. Nope. I'm a little copped out in all aspects of society. So it's like, yeah, I think, to celebrate our communities and give voice. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. It was really a pleasure.